Yeah, we're ready.
All right, board members, appreciate you coming. The council report, it's the annual report. We share every year in July. She's gonna share that, and then I'm gonna get into some things, for this back part of the agenda, share with you, close out the meeting. Gwen?
Good afternoon, board members. As Dr. Denny has shared, for board policy 6140 student wellness, we have a school health advisory council, which we often call SHAC, and we give you a yearly annual report of our updates. So my report to you today for the accomplishments of the 22-23 school year include, as you know, at the end of the school year, each of our schools submitted a USA Schools Plan. We provide physical education to all of our schools. I'm going to skip down a little bit, not read all those to you because you have those in front of you. As a reminder, this year the school nutrition program offered a universal free breakfast to 21 of our schools. Back this year, Kelly Green and her staff offered the opportunity for stakeholders to participate in a menus committee, which if you've never participated in that, I would encourage you to do so. It was really great to be a part of that, where they cook and let everyone have input on what those menus for breakfast and lunch will look like for the next school year. That has been completed. We also focused on drug awareness and prevention. That was provided at each elementary, middle, and high school levels. Our work for that this year is every school provided, we're asked to provide a lesson during October during our Red Ribbon Week. They also should have provided a lesson in May during National Prevention Week. It's also covered in our health curriculum. And at the end of the school year, we piloted a program called Catch My Breath. It's a vaping prevention program at Randall Middle School. Feedback has been very well received with that. They enjoyed that. Again, that was through our health department. And our vision is that we will roll that out to all of our middle schools, one grade level, probably 7th grade, to all middle school students this coming school year. And again, that was Catch My Breath, which is a vaping prevention program. We continue to work on our Obeas bullying prevention program. Those lessons are offered K through 9. Elementary provides a lesson once a week. Our middle school and high schools provided in their health education class probably about twice a month. And then we also ask each school to do a school-wide activity around Obeas bullying prevention. We continued our focus on mental health virtual training. As you probably recall, in June of 2021, there was a school-based mental health initiative, state mandate of some of that training. And so this year we continued with that training. Our staff received training on human trafficking, child abuse, suicide awareness, prescription drug and opioid abuse and how it impacts students, self-injury and cutting, dating violence, and then just student mental health in general, how to be aware of interventions in the referral process for our system. And then lastly on that list, we continued, Seth does this, through the Operations Department, our monthly safety meetings for all schools. So going into the 23-24 school year, the SHAC committee would like to continue our focus on the goals that we've had now for a couple of years, because we feel like there's still lots of work that can be done in all these areas. So those goals include, we want to continue to focus on the mental health needs of students and staff. We want to continue to seek ways to increase our importance for wellness, not only for our students, but also for our staff members. Continue to seek a way to increase the resources that we can provide for drug awareness and prevention, also including e-cigarettes and vaping, and then our continued work on communication and collaboration between us and our mental health agencies. So, questions for the 22-23 school year or going into the 23-24 school year for the SHAC Council?
It's the guy that we talked about, has he called you?
Yes, it went in Larry Chapel. Wednesday? Tomorrow.
We'll meet tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a, probably start out, if you guys like it, like a, what, I guess we could tell the rest, I mean, has he told you much about it?
I've got a skeleton overview, yeah.
A little bit of overview.
There's a police officer wanting to come in and basically and spread it out like, was it 9th grade?
Mm-hmm.
Take a health class or something and talk about, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, like drug awareness, like drinking, or what is it basically?
Yeah, when you share with me, it's the interactions, the different types of interactions that may take place between our students and our police officers and how we can counterbalance with some education to smooth that. Yeah, so we meet tomorrow, and I'll know more tomorrow. I've got a very
Yeah, I'm not
small
sure.
glimpse at this moment.
Okay.
And we, Kathy, Waddell, and Jeff Davis and I met about it's called a, connection grant, Kathy? And we're eligible for some of these funds, and so, putting together a group to talk about a focus with some of those funds on vaping and drug prevention as well. That was
If there's
one of the-
anybody, I know Shannon and I,
But
we
we're not-
looked at a video one time, or she sent, or one of us sent it. But like in middle school, there's people out that, and I don't know how much it costs, it may be really expensive, but it's, they have a little bit of star power, and they come in and like talk to.
Yeah, like a motivational, like,
They're
you know,
motivational,
somebody
and
who
it's
comes
pretty
in
strong
and they
because
kinda look up to.
they've been at the bottom. And,
Yeah.
when you see how low somebody like that, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So I remember my daughter was in middle school. They had people coming like that.
Middle school, if you don't get them in middle school, you may not
yeah,
get
you
them.
better.
I mean, really, what I hear from students, like the e-cigarettes and vaping, it's probably as big a problem in middle school as it is in high schools. And that's what I was wondering, do we keep stats of when we catch kids with drugs and e-cigarettes and stuff like
The
that?
discipline reports capture that.
I'd be interested to look at, see how it's progressed or
And I would be
Legal.
interested, and this might, and Edwina, you might know this, how many parents, when these kids are caught or have interactions with drugs at school, are completely clueless? Because it's almost like the parents don't believe, obviously, their kids would do any wrong, and then they come in and their kids, you know, baked and passed out in the bathroom, and the ambulance is there, and it's, you know, all kinds of chaos, and they're going, I had no idea. You know, so I just wonder how much education can we push to the parents too, just so we can say, you know, we're giving you all the stuff, these are the things to look for, you
And we've
know?
actually talked about that as a
Yeah.
SHAC committee, and it's been a while ago, but in 2019, I believe it was, at all the middle and high school open houses, we offered a session on vape, what does it look like to educate parents. Unfortunately, it wasn't very well attended, so we
Right.
talked about how do we get outside of the
Yeah.
box to educate our parents.
Because no
I
parent's
agree.
gonna come in and say, my kid's gonna be the one vaping, they're gonna be, or, you know, doing drugs or whatever, they're gonna be like, my kid's not doing that, you know, most of the time.
I mean, because the thing with the vaping now, they've got them where they can put the THC in them and all, and the kid does that to hide it. They say, well, if I get caught vaping, it ain't gonna be as bad as if I get caught smoking marijuana.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
And we updated our code of conduct so that it's in the same code as the controlled substance. If they have a vaping device, our principals can utilize that controlled substance. And then some have talked about educational piece, some utilize the STEP Center through JCPC, they have a substance abuse counselor. And so we have encouraged especially if kids are being out of school suspended, that we encourage parents to send their students there because they have a counselor there and they talk to them about,
Making good choices.
Making good choices.
Peer pressure and leadership and that sort of thing.
so we're trying to tap into those resources for sure.
Talk about the vaping and stuff. If we looked at and put some of these gummies in,
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause these gummies, you can get them now, they're loaded up with THC and stuff. I mean, it's almost like, yeah, you can go to the drugstore and buy them. But if you take enough of them, because I have run college where teenage kids, 20 milligrams, but they eat 15 of them.
Right.
We've had these.
It's just so easy to get a hold of it. I mean, I don't know how it's just everywhere, isn't it?
Really, sadly, it is.
What's really sad now, sometimes when you jump on the kids, heck, the parents defend it. That's amazing.
We will keep working at it, looking for avenues, be curious to see what comes out of this connection grant and this committee. I think Kathy, you said today, leadership, the invitation's already gone out for a group of people to talk about what we could do to pursue. That's one of the avenues we can use that money for.
So how long is suspension if you get, I forgot, like,
They can do up to 10 days. From the data that I've looked at, our high schools.
if it's, you repeat or what if you, Okay. If you play sports and you get caught, you're not allowed to do any,
You're not allowed to participate in sports when you're in-school suspension. Any day you're suspended from school or you're in in-school suspension. So that's been,
Working out.
so that would be practice and everything. So if you guys were suspended for 10 days, you miss 10 days of sports, whether it's games, practice, or whatever.
Mm.
Same thing for in-school
That
suspension.
could be 2 football games. That could be 4 basketball games.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, board members, I want to go in reverse order, if you don't mind. Because I'm afraid we'll get to the end and I'll forget this, so I went and pulled it out of my folder.
you know, when you do that, you throw me and Tracy off because we just follow the script.
We're just gonna go 3, 2, 1, all right?
We'll be all right.
So, you have, Ms.
Like count down.
Whitaker, you've not seen this you may have seen it through some of the public documents, but I want to give you, this is as big as our calendar will get on this document, but there's some important dates I want to point out. Obviously, the first day of school for early college, if you look at our overview, it's the last one, okay. The 2 first days of school for all the other schools, August 28th, early college is August 7th. I also want to point out that our Teacher of the Year banquet is September 5. This will be our 3rd year we've scheduled it early. We started it 3 years ago saying let's have beginning of the year, so the teacher of the year we name, that's the year, so they name them in May and they go. And also, prior to changing this, we had retirement banquet, Teacher of the Year banquet, and the employee recognition board meeting all in 1 month. And that was tough. Now, I say 3rd year, but the very first year we went to have it was 21-22, and we canceled it about 2 days before, maybe a day before, just because of what was going on with COVID at that time. So it worked well. It's at Pinewood, and you can see some other events throughout this calendar. We've got the retirement dinner, number 12, and also the employee recognition, which coincides with the May board meeting. So just wanted you to have that and point that out. We won't know the things about the, actually, I didn't change that. I'm sorry, I got wrong dates on there. That all those budget talks, fix those. That won't be the 23-24 budget, that'll be the 24-25 budget when we get to March 18 and April 15. So those are typos, but we won't have those dates for May and June for a while. They won't be set by commissioners until we get to January when they reset their calendar.
So this is our first year of doing the Teacher of the Year by ourselves, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, with that being said, and you're handling it, right?
Yes. we are
Okay,
handling-
Pinewood will be serving, you won't be in charge of the food, right?
No, I would not be in charge of the food.
Man, that
No
spaghetti was
spaghetti.
We
good.
won't have spaghetti.
Well, you don't want spaghetti,
That spaghetti was
I'm
good.
telling you, thank God.
We will not have spaghetti, I promise you that.
That would be a good opening line to start that show.
That would be. All right, let's go to the virtual academy. Who's got this? I'll go back to the thing. So the next item, back up, we won't go 3, 2, 1, we'll go back to the virtual academy. Give you an update on virtual academy, probably do this, at least through the August meeting as we get closer to the start of the board meeting, or start of the school year. The virtual academy is now at 95 students. 44 or 46.3% of those students will be new to the school next year. We have 4 more potential students that are monitoring. That's been coming in with the data. I will say the in-person activities are still working on that to build from where they are. Ms. Carter is she's got a committee working on this. And they're looking at some field trips and some different things, but they also don't want to do so much that parents are feeling like they're driving all the time to the school, because some parents are driving, she says, as much as an hour to get there. So they're trying also to add some things in on the days when they do check-ins and all the kids come to the site. So, but how are we, just some things that are underway, some other things that are going on. We talked about shifting our focus from promotion and growth of the school instead of focusing on longevity of the school. talk about some additional in-person activities, which I mentioned. We have the deadline for enrollment, August 1. There has been a promotional flyer, I told you at the last June, or June 5th meeting, maybe it was June 29. There is a promotional flyer that's been out since June 7. It's on all our social media outlets, it's also on the school system's webpage. There was a loop put on the school system's Facebook page. I've seen the loop, I don't know that I knew what a loop was. It was put out on June 27, so that's been out for a while. The last time the update came, the promotional video had not been done yet. So we have a promotional flyer, now we have a promotional video, and this will be on the school system's webpage. It's on the Twitter account, Facebook page, and YouTube channel, and Instagram page of the school system. So it's a video that was done in-house inside the school system. Ms. Ward was involved with Ms. Carter, and I think Mr. Moody was involved as well back in June, but it's now posted. And then another item another promotional piece that's out there is we're in the process of creating 2 15-second commercials. And these are professionally done. We've been using the Burks agency for about 4 or 5 years now. For 4 or 5 years, the school system has had 4 15-second commercials. And they run, and to give you an idea of what happens with those commercials, some are on 5,000 times a month. The commercials run on what's called targeted digital pre-roll, which is when people pull up websites or internet addresses, you see ads pop up, well, there goes our 15-second commercial. So we've had 4 of those each of the last, probably at least 4 years, maybe 5, and we've already have those ready for the school system, but now we're going to engage with the Burks agency again, and we're going to create 2 for the virtual academy, and they're going to run the same amount of time. So they'll run 5,000 times a month on targeted digital pre-roll, and 11,940 times a month on what's called premium over-the-top delivery television outlets. And this is like HGTV, the Hallmark Channel, TLC Channel, Food Network, Lifetime Channel, ESPN ACC Network. Now we're not going to be on WFNY or Fox 8 because that will be regional, so we'd have all these other counties watching. This is going to be queued into our zip codes in our county for the Virtual Academy at Randolph. So just some more exposure.
Was that expensive?
We spend $71.50 a year on those 4 commercials, and the package we're getting ready to do with Burks Agency is 4 more commercials, 2 for Virtual Academy and 2 for UR Ridge.
Let me ask you, this is probably off the chart, it just hit me, but, and I don't know how much it is, you might get a deal since you're in school, but it's very eye-catching, and every time I come down 220, I can't help but see it. They're real high.
Yeah,
Have you checked on it?
Mr. Moody and I researched that about 4 or 5 years
The
ago.
one that flashes, if you get, it changes with different people, but I know Biggs got it. He said it wasn't too bad. I
Yeah,
mean,
but he's gonna
if you
spend a
talk
lot
to
more
somebody,
money.
huh?
We checked.
His
on-
budget's bigger than.
To be
that.
honest with
It's
you,
usually
the-
a regular
just
billboard's
thinking.
like
The
$3.
flashing marquee that's on the side of the Ashburn Randolph Chamber, I've for years wanted, welcome to the Randolph County School System on that. But we tried, Tim and I researched that about 3 or 4 years ago, and the price was way more than I anticipated it being.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it's, yeah.
It might be in all who you know and talk to, though.
Let me talk, because they just
I'm
put,
telling you.
they
it
just
makes
put
a
one on, what's the gym down here on
I'm just saying it would,
CrossFit?
yeah, it would
And
look,
I know the owner
it would
pretty
look
well.
cool. Randolph Virtual Academy, something like the education.
We would love, we'd love to have that, so if y'all can work
You
that
notice
out,
that billboard every time you go through.
if y'all can work that out, we'd love that billboard right there, to be honest with you. But, we are getting, like I said,
Which
we're
one
gonna
you
get
talking
4
about?
more commercials, the one out on 220,
One there.
right there above the landscape.
Yeah.
You know where, yeah, that's the one I was
Yeah,
talking
that's the one
about.
you talked about, the one.
But I was talking about the one on the side of the Ashburn Randolph
Yeah,
Chamber.
I was
Yeah, I
talking-
like that one too,
Yeah.
but, they're the only 2 electronic ones I've seen in the
They
county.
said they'd do
Yeah, they
it
did
cheaper
do it
if we didn't
across
put your picture up there.
Gotcha. All right, any questions about that? I mentioned,
Bad idea.
I also mentioned there will be 4 more commercials, so 2 of them will be Virtual Academy and 2 of them will be UR Ridge with the Burks Agency. So But we're gonna get the same number of 16,000 plus showings a month. 11,940 on the TV channels, and then 5,000 on the internet. So the next thing I want to share, Beverly, did you send that? We didn't hook that to that, did we?
No, but they've got it.
Okay, can we display that? Can you get that, can we get that displayed?
The one that I
Yeah.
sent to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next thing I want to talk about is the field trip guidelines, which has been a question. I just want to talk to you a little bit about what is in our field trip guidelines and what's not. Because we hear a lot, Kathy's office, and I know Larry Chappell deals with those with Kathy as well. We get a lot of feedback about those, but I want to walk through. Can we get that up?
Yeah, but you want it linked on
Yeah.
there, that's what I'll have to, I just want to make sure.
Oh, I'm gonna wait a minute so everybody can see this.
Larry, since you're sitting there in Dale's place, can you make sure we get that? I think, since you're sitting in Dale's place, can you make sure we get that up there, please?
Got a business people working on it.
You sit right there at the computer station.
Look, he
All right.
runs future in
Look,
politics.
Okay.
Politically correct answer.
Big the training.
Just want to talk through this document a little bit. Our staff spends a lot of time on field trips, and I appreciate it. Trying to meet the needs and requests of schools, but also trying to work with what field trips are intended to be and what they're not intended to be if they're not fitting our requirements and safety standards, and we have to address that. And so I know you get hit with that. So we talked back in the spring, the board chair and I did, about when we were just talking about field trips, and there was some feedback coming, and so we said we'd bring it up in July as we get ready to start a new school year. So a couple things you notice on this document is, and in the first school I was principal of, I was like, tell me about field trips. I was middle school principal in Burlington, and I couldn't quite tell what was going on with field trips. And we had field trips being scheduled in January for March. And I started thinking about, what are we doing with instruction here? So we started year 2. I made a decision that, hey, if a field trip's important enough, we need to get it planned early so we can plan to finance it and plan around instruction so we know what kind of instructional time we're missing. And so very similar, very parallel here, that September 29 is when field trip requests need to be in.
Yep.
And you know, if they're that important, I don't care if they're for May or April.
Well, you know the
Let's
curriculum.
plan. So we don't miss a lot of instructional time, but we can work our instructional time around that. But I want to walk through a couple things. They really need to be curriculum related. Now, we know some field trips, well, you say they may be competition based, like with some of our band and chorus groups. Well, that's still related to their curriculum. And I'm just going to highlight a couple bullets. I'll go through every one, but I'm going to go through right many of them. The first one, provide a meaningful learning experience that cannot be provided in the school setting. That's big. You go down a little ways, provide activities that are suitable for the age or grade level of the students. And then we get down to overnight trips. There's a comment there about overnight trips should not take more than 2 instructional days. So we work on that, and yes, and I was talking to Ms. Waddell today, and I said, all through this, we know that some things are going to come up during the school year that we may not have known about by September 29, and there's a lot of flexibility in these parameters and procedures to allow those things to happen. Now, I don't know that it's healthy if come January, we see 50 more field trips appear. We need to get the bulk of them out of the way by September 29. But when you look down here at the overnight trips competition, see right there, the individual competition will be considered separately. And then the next thing, as we know, the next bullet, that second sentence, schools are encouraged to underwrite as much as possible the cost, so individuals' costs are the minimum. Well, I think everything in the school system, most things in the school system occur that way. You see a lot of the athletic programs work with booster clubs when there's travel, a team goes far into playoffs. What happens on some of those extra expenses you might not have been counting on, but you hope come your way. Skip on down to the last one. This is important, very important. Now we start talking about safety. Provide supervision with at least one adult per 10 students. And then you've got students, when we're talking about overnight trips, chaperones, same-sex chaperones. Also, an adult must accompany students on every trip. As a parent, I probably don't want to find out my kid went on a field trip and had 3 hours of free time, wherever he or she went. I'm probably going to be concerned. Teachers should provide direct supervision, and the teachers, obviously the teacher can't do that, him or herself, by himself or herself. That's why they have the chaperones. But I'm going to get to that in a minute. So you're coming on down there, you got a consent form signed. I can remember as a high school baseball football coach, I had a bag that went on the bus with me everywhere I went, and it had all the release forms for every player with me, because I didn't know if a kid was going to get hurt, and his mom or dad wasn't with me. Wasn't going to come to the away game. That was a bag. It was a bag that I took myself on the bus every away game. So, looking on down a little bit, provide assurances, skip them down a little ways. And I'm not saying the other items are not important. I just, as I was studying through this and thinking about the topics to discuss, I thought, these are some key ones. We don't want children denied opportunities because they cannot afford to go. And I know our schools go to great lengths. When you get beyond field trips during the school day, I know our performing arts programs, our athletic programs go to great lengths to take care of students. Now you come on down, there's one that, you look down, there'll be no team, group, club, sleepovers at school. Go back up a little bit. That's been in all these rules, so I've been here 10 years. There was a document dated 2017 that reached way back, and this one was revised and reformatted, mostly reformatted in 2018. So these aren't new rules. These have been in this school system a while. And quite frankly, these aren't rules that the other two school systems I worked in had totally different sets of rules. These were, but sleepovers at school without the approval of the Board of Education. So, when I see that, there's a reason that's there. It didn't occur during my time, but there's a reason that's there. No water activities such as swimming, boating, canoeing, kayaking, rafting. That's the next item. Very clear right there. That has been no different in the three systems I've been in. Water activities. No high ropes courses or zip line, next bullet. And now we're back to just some item, a bullet there, it's noted in the first paragraph. Calendar of field trips has to be submitted to the superintendent or superintendent's designee, which winds up being Ms. Waddell, and Dr. Chappell works with you closely on those, does he not? Yeah. He does. Okay, so, and here's one right here, going down, the last two bullets need some, go back up. Look at that last sentence, that one, the second to last bullet. Nothing in this procedure precludes the superintendent designee from canceling a field trip due to safety concerns. Nobody wants to do that. That's not any fun when a hurricane's coming and there's field trips the next day. Whenever we have bad weather, whether winter weather or what, one of the things, we're watching the weather and we think the next day is in question. So the directors at each level are out finding out, one of the questions is find out what schools are going where. Atlanta's being asked what athletic teams are doing something tomorrow, or if the weather's kicking up in late morning, who's got something this afternoon. we're trying to figure out where everything's going here. And then, last thing I want to do, your experiences, I know it's no fun, I've lived it. When you say, everybody go home, and you just canceled 5 field trips, and you just uprooted 5 athletic schedules, and now we're having to redo. And then the last item there, April 30th, I think that's been on the books for a long time, because we know what May brings with testing. And whether you're gonna take a grade level on a field trip that's not being tested in, that in and out of the school can be as disruptive, and we need everybody on board. Because we, with all the proctoring and help people are doing with testing, when they're not testing their exact class. So, any questions about those items? I'm gonna get into some other things and get a little deeper in this. And then I'm gonna point out some things that have come up, just hot topics that have come up from field trips. Any questions about the first items? So here's something you may, this may be something you've never been hit with, but that next section, there are situations where a teacher will sponsor a field trip. Like in the summer, take a group to Europe. Okay? Those are not our trips. Okay? They're not. So we have to be real careful that we don't pull them under the umbrella of our school system. So these items are very important. They cannot, fundraising is not part of these trips as part of the school's not allowed. We don't allow the school staff. I mean, if Stephen Gainey wants to go take a group of high school students on a trip to Europe, then Stephen Gainey needs to find his own place to meet with them, find his way to raise the money and make sure everybody knows what it costs, finding whatever he wants to do with supervision of the trip. And on top of that, he doesn't need to be using the school system's name or the school's name in any of this. And some people get upset when this gets addressed, but you'll see in a minute, we don't approve trips to go out of the country. And most of these trips right here are out of the country trips. I mean, they've been going on for years, but if they want to have a meeting on the campus, then they need to call Dale Brinkley and do the facility use agreement for them, like any other outside group. So you may not have heard of these occurring, but these have been occurring. I've only heard a couple cases in the time I've been here, but I've heard it in other systems. But name of the school system, that's big. That 4th bullet down. The name of the school or school system may not be listed on the paperwork. Once the school system's name gets put on there, or the school's name, any liability that comes up is somebody's going to try to tag it back to us. We have to be very careful there. And there's another reason why, really, that's a piece that'll have to be cleaned up as well, because starting with last school year, 22-23, last school year, we don't distribute any flyers or any information that's not school system related at this point. Okay? So we would see that and we would say, well, the flyer hanging in the building is not us, not a school sponsored event, so we take it down. So that's a piece that comes up. I know of one, we ran into at least one situation this year that we knew of that unfortunately, people don't like it when we say, no, our school system and our school, your school can't be a part of this. This is a separate, private situation that you're engaging in, and I'm sure it's educational. It's great, but we can't engage in that. So anyways, safety guidelines is the next thing, and I was talking to Ms. Waddell this afternoon, and code red, code orange, those first 3 bullets, code red, code orange, and code yellow. Code red, no one can go anywhere. We don't need to be going anywhere. That's a national, state level. Code red, big concerns. Code orange is big concerns as well. 1-day trips, And we would expect the teacher who's doing the trip to get back by 12 midnight, would not be overnight. Exception though, and here's some of that stuff that's in this whole set of procedures, is there's an exception to this, and look down there, if a student had earned awards to compete at a high level, at national state level, we'll work to make sure the kid's not denied that opportunity if we can. Now, that exception does not apply to Code Red, because if we're in a national or state Code Red, I would imagine any kind of situation involving an individual award will be delayed. And then also we want to note back, even in Code Red, no one's going anywhere, but Code Orange, we're going to restrict where people are allowed to go, even on the one-day trip, military bases, nuclear power plants, airports, major waterways. We're not going to Washington D.C. or New York. When we're on Code Orange, we're not going. And that's just, we're not going to big cities, and those two there's a lot of trips that wind up being planned to those two cities, but we're not going to big cities if we're on Code Orange. So moving down, again, Code Yellow, everything's fine. Then we get down to the high-risk activities, and under the high-risk activities, you get, scrolling down under high-risk activities, there's about 5 bullets right there. And I think there's some on the next page, but water activities. Water activities, you guys get hit with it like I do. Why can't we? Well, the big thing about the water activities, I'll speak to it again, is that's our liability too. When it's our trip, it's one of our trips, we take on that liability, and there are safety issues there with these different high-risk amusement park rides. We're right on the heels of the situation at Carowinds with the roller coaster post that was evidently breaking as roller coasters went by. The other week, right after that, there was a water ride at another amusement park where a child flew off the water ride and landed and fell 20 feet. But you see through there are some things that, it's a safety issue. To me, it's also how many of our students are going to be comfortable in these activities. I don't know. Or you take a whole grade level and you say, we're going to do water activities. Is every child going to be comfortable with that? I don't know. Scrolling down, these are some things that, you got the wilderness activities, skating. These are some things that we should not have.
Question,
What's that?
up there in that last bullet point on the first page, you got archery in there?
And Powder Puff football.
You go to these, it ain't really a field trip, but these hunter safety competitions.
But I think that's under the program. They're
Okay,
prepared for that.
I just
You're
don't
talking
want
about,
somebody to come and say, well, you go.
you're talking about me going on a field trip, and I'm right now, have all the safety training that.
They did powder puff during homecoming and all.
Yeah, that's what I said,
that's
you're at your
not-
school, you didn't go on a field trip.
Yeah.
That's
that's
what
can't
I
go
learned
out-
the difference was being
You
there
end up
versus
playing in the
somewhere
school
else.
system in Powder.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the whole grade level.
but you think that's still,
Yeah, I'm not getting,
No.
I'm thinking at it as a field trip.
As a field
and the
trip.
whole
do we
crowd.
still have any schools that go on a beach trip?
I don't think so. I think that trip I don't think there were any this year. I think
What
that
about when, I guess that's more, is that in the summer or is that during, spring break or something? Some school used to go to the beach and play in tournaments or is it during spring break, is that off?
We deal with that.
Are we not into that or how is that?
Well, we deal with that. We have teams that get invited and we work through that with their supervision plans they have to put down and how are they supervising the kids and how are they traveling. And then with that comes, we're not doing amusement parks, we're not getting in pools, we're not getting in water at the beach.
And isn't that hard to,
That's probably hard.
I think that'd be really,
Probably
really
hard
hard.
to,
I think that'd be almost impossible.
I had a,
Saturday is the March Kansas.
Yeah.
You know, when I was high school principal group, wanted to go and be the featured, band on a cruise ship. Well, number one, it wasn't gonna be long before we were out in the middle of the sea, so that was in, and then, but they started with, "Well, we promise you the kids won't get on get in the pool," and I said, "I'm not sure I can count on 80 high school kids standing beside the pool on a cruise ship or not." You know, we got past the part that we were leaving the dock, and we're gonna be out in the middle of, the ocean or
Southwest
the
Middle,
sea.
they going to be strip anymore?
No.
They do
They,
not?
they have not, in several years now.
Wow.
Honestly, I think that
Sure,
maybe
some-
about 5 years ago, maybe,
Okay.
maybe 1 year.
No, years ago they used to, I didn't.
I don't think it's been several years since they've done it. So that gives you some things, that gives you some ideas. So when staff gets these proposals and starts asking questions back, they're going right to this document that's been out there for a long time. So we'll continue to push that out to principals and ask them to make sure they're reviewing things. And then, you know, here's the next section is, equally important. So, when you get down to it, the sponsoring teacher should get approval before having any discussions with students or parents regarding the trip. You know, that piece right there can alleviate a lot of things. If I go talk to somebody about going here and there, and then all of a sudden, 3 steps down the road, it goes from me to the field trip committee or the principal, and then it gets turned down at one of those next 3 steps. Now, that's when we start having issues, and we have people getting upset, but that's right there, the first step, get approval. Also, we have a field trip committee at every school. The principal can approve a field trip that's 3 hours or less. Anything more goes to the field trip committee, but then the school principal, if the field trip committee and the school principal say go forward, then we still have the overnight out-of-state and out-of-country trips that come to the assistant superintendent for instruction. And that's why it's aligned, because we're now dealing with instructional time, and way back, it's a curriculum related. But I can tell you, of those 3, another page, you're gonna see that one of those 3 is never gonna be approved, which is out of the country. So, go back to that bottom thing here.
Shit. Y'all didn't even get no water, did you?
Go back down, go back up. All right, so this is another place right here. Right below that, above that set of questions. If a field trip opportunity arises during the year, it's not possible to wait until the second semester. No. Field trip committee will meet in September, and if needed, at the beginning of the second semester. Embedded in this all along is opportunities, but now, once we get things set in September, we feel like we know where things are, and we hope the schools know where. Now, some things are gonna pop up. Somebody's chorus group or band group may get selected. You mentioned, Mr. Cook, about we've had a baseball program selected to, or invited to go to a very prestigious tournament. I think it was 2 years in a row, wasn't it, spring break? And so, you know, things like that happen, and we'll work through those, but we need to get the majority out of the way early. So, going down there below that set of questions, if you will, right there. Prior to signing any contracts or sending any notice to students, parents, or the community, all overnight and out-of-state trips must have the approval of the superintendent or designee at least 60 days in advance. So sometimes we get some reaction to that, but we may have some things we need you to do with those 60 days. And we don't need to, we may not be able to get all the things we're gonna ask you to do done in 5 days. If we learn about it 5 days before you're going. But we're gonna ask you to give us a transportation plan. We hope it's on, 99% of the time, we're gonna insist it be on our transportation. But we're gonna need a transportation plan. We're gonna need hour if it's overnight, what's the sleeping arrangements? What's the chaperone arrangements? So that's been there. And then down here, we've had this question come up. Yes, in our procedures, the second sentence, activity buses may not travel out of the state except on the border of North Carolina. That is all about Carowinds right there in that next sentence. It's all Carowinds, because one of the parking lots, if not several of the parking lots, are half in South Carolina, half in North Carolina. And Wendy Anderson has an agreement with Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. So that was never the Carowinds stuff. You heard it, you heard it some this spring. We never said you couldn't go to Carowinds. But we did say we're not riding amusement parks, we're not getting on water rides, we're not. And I'll tell you one more there about Wendy's has relationships all over the state. And a lot of transportation directors do. You know, they can call each other and say, we've got an activity bus in your county and something's wrong with it. Can you go over and help us? And like we had a group, was it New Hanover County Schools, fueled our buses back at spring break for a softball team that was in a tournament. So there's all kinds of, we had a group come back from the state fair a couple years ago from one of the competitions. And so I called the superintendent and said, we're dealing with a tornado situation. Can you, because I knew that school system, I knew where the schools were. I said, if we need to pull a bus over to take shelter in one of your schools, can we? And so that superintendent called multiple principals on the western edge of that county to say, we may have some visitors. So, that stuff happens all over the state. That's credit to relationships and people throughout the state. So, scrolling down to the next thing. Once approval has been secured, see right there, then you have to get the signed permission slips from parents. That's something that's been in place for years and during all of our times. Now, one of the things is, down in that paragraph, the second to last sentence, the student's grade will not be affected as a result of not participating in the field trip. Many reasons why a child may not participate in the field trip. And then, scroll down. The sponsoring teacher should meet with chaperones. Next one down. Next one down. So, here's what we get hit with sometimes. I want to go on a field trip. I want to go with my child. Well, we need the adults that are going, the chaperones, to go help our teachers. And we're going to give you, the expectation is going to be the kids will be divided up in small groups, and you're going, yeah, it's great, but this is about our kids. This isn't about bringing non-school age and all. If you're going to chaperone, we need you helping us with these 10 kids. And we get a lot of help from parents, but we also need, when these trips are planned, there's an expectation that there's a time to meet with all the chaperones. Here's what we need you to do, and kind of lay out how it's going to work on the field trip. So going down out of county field trips, you can see that it's been referenced up, and we need to, we'll go through and adjust as we need to. Even with Justin, we're not going to be changing any of the information unless the board would like us to. But school trips, we're not going outside the United States. That's something we've not approved up till now. There's some things about student discipline down there, and we don't, scrolling down through there, student discipline and whether a kid can go on a field trip or not. We try to leave that with the school level as much as we can. But then here's something that people don't realize maybe on field trips. If a field trip, the very bottom thing, free reduced lunch. If a child is on free reduced lunch, then they go on a field trip there, we cannot expect them to have, we've got to make sure we're covering lunch. They go in a restaurant. If a restaurant meal is involved, we need to make sure that there's coverage of that as well. So, because that is their meal. If they were at school, we would be having lunch and stuff here. So, at any rate, there's the document. That document is out for principals. Like I say, principals work with it. They have a field trip committee they work through with this. So there's the document that drives things. But I will tell you, a lot of times the driver is, do we even have safety things in place before we got, but, you know, I know some situations where in other FS systems, things have not gone well on trips. And it's very difficult to recover from those. So the concerns I've had raised in the past year, and one of the reasons we're talking about this today is amusement park rides. And I pointed out 2 recent incidents that I've learned of. I think everybody has heard of the situation with roller coaster at Carowinds, or most people have. That was all over the internet. Also, the water slide issue that I learned about the other week. So the question is, with that, when people ask me, I want kids safe. I want them safe all the time. But when they're with us, that's one of our priorities. We have to make sure they're safe. And, you know, we can do differently, but with that comes a good amount of liability. The other thing I've had, not only the rides, the water activities, I can tell you about the time of the year I get calls about different things, and you know, when it's our trip, it's our trip. It's not a matter of whether, maybe I'm a chaperone and my son's on the trip. Well, that doesn't mean that because I'm there, it's the school's trip. School system is under the school system responsibility. So, again, want everybody to be safe. Also have to think about what liability we incur as a school system.
I just think, I mean, the incident last year, I know the principals got this and the committee's got this, and a lot of times, like a lot of things, teachers need to be educated. Because I know instant, I think I called you about it. Field trip was supposed to be planned, I ain't saying where and what, and I got parents calling me, wanting to know why Edwina and Dr. Gandy canceled the field trip and this, that. And it came all about it. Y'all asked for the paperwork.
And Winna didn't get to go, and that's why she was upset. So she can't.
But you know, here comes all this paperwork the teacher had to do, and the teacher didn't want to do it.
It's a lot of paperwork.
But then, you know, that's my whole moment. Put the blame where it belongs. Don't put the blame
Yeah.
down here in the central office when it ain't a problem.
Well,
And
and I think you're right, Mr. Wolf. We'll just continue to share and try to get information out. I think one of the things that's important is, you know, how hard it is to pull something back once everybody's excited about it. And then, you know, it's hard enough when, like September 30th, I don't even remember how many things we had going on, but you know, we canceled school the 29th because of September 30th. I think that was the Friday the hurricane was coming. And so we probably hit some field trips. We might have hit some, well, I know ball games got moved up to Thursday night, but JV football games got moved because they were supposed to be on Thursday night. So, you know, anytime you have to shut something down, it causes hardships, it causes upset people, but we would never do that on purpose. But same token is, we gotta be careful. We gotta be real careful. Are we gonna, on this trip, let everybody swim in the pool at the hotel and just hope we don't have a problem there? Because once that happens, then the door's open.
just schedule all the trips in the middle of the winter, man. You don't have to worry about water.
Hotels.
You
We
know,
never got to stay in fancy hotels like you did.
look, I was a part of some field trips, and I went to Washington. I mean, I was all boy, and we done some pretty stupid things, and it can happen. You know, it can happen really, really quick, and then if it happens, especially now, it's worse now than.
Oh, my God.
Definitely
Yeah,
was now.
social media.
But I mean, you know, you
That's
talk about, you got the vaping, you got all this different stuff you could slip in, and you're asking for something really bad that could happen. I mean, and it only takes one time, and, I mean, you just don't know anymore, or you could get, I mean, I think I know when my kids were younger, I went on field trips, and honestly, I felt like, you know, what, 10-1 or something like that? Well, seemed like I had my 10, 12, and it wasn't easy. And I'll be straight up with you, when I left that field trip, my question was, I'm 4 or 5. We went one night to Camp Carrollwood and spent all night. And one of my questions was, my God, what the teachers do here? What parents have done it all? And I mean, that's just a fact. We had pretty decent parents, but I could see where it would, it'd go south. It could very easily go south. I was wore out. I feel like I've been wrestling alligators. I mean, it was,
I just think we need to stay strict,
yeah.
absolutely.
I'll tell you what you could do. Let me share
Or
a
go
story,
Carowinds.
a quick story with you.
Get their mama to eat.
Kathy, you may remember, Andrea, you may have went, I'm not sure. Any of you ladies go, we had a field trip one time, okay, you're talking about the students. You're gonna love this one. It was dealing with Wheatmore. They had a Chinese program coming, this is just telling it like it is. It wasn't under your administration, by the way. Do you remember the field trip to China? Did you go?
I wasn't on it.
You wasn't on it, were you?
Yeah.
You weren't
They
either,
were
were you,
going to
Kathy?
China.
But let me tell you
Hey,
something.
there now, buddy. If they didn't go, they didn't go now.
Oh, they went to China, but I
They
think
went
it
to
was some
China?
grant money. Yes, but here's the deal. They're talking
Students?
about bringing this Chinese program into Wheatmore. And I mean, right after we're
I don't remember.
gonna bring, you don't even wanna hear this one. But when it got down to going to China, I'm thinking, I mean, you know what? You know who went? Most everybody down, or a certain group down here went. It wasn't very few students, if any. It was like, do you remember that?
Beverly, you go?
No, Beverly wasn't. I don't think she was here then. You guys remember it though.
I remember.
There was a lot of staff down here that went on that field trip, probably 8 or 10. I mean,
They
some
should've
from
been taking
school and all,
holiday tours.
and they come back and they presented all this thing, and I'm sitting there, you know, thinking, man, this is not adding up right here at all. Oh, you on it?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, I didn't think you was. You weren't down here then. You had to be down here to go on it.
I don't think anybody didn't say it's
You didn't go, but
Everybody's looking.
a couple more, I don't know, I can tell you about 5 that went, but I won't.
Did Matthew go?
No school board members, it was central office staff and a few school staff, high school director back in the day, and a couple more. There's no telling how much money was spent on that field. At least we got away from that. That's really not a part of this, but it's
And-
interesting.
One other thing that I missed, and you may not know this, but Larry knows this, and everybody who's been a principal knows this, or a director probably does, probably has been hit with this as well. You mentioned holiday tours. So, every year, there's a set of charter bus companies we can use. If you're not on that bus company list that we can use, we can't use, because they have to have a certain safety standard. And so just know that piece of it. You can't just, sometimes is one company charging more than another? Well, we're gonna go with the safety standard. We don't have support to go outside that approved list. And Larry knows that from when he gives that list, and principals know where that list is. So, and I don't think, just know that, if that ever comes up, that's not somebody trying to, push a company on, it's a list of the approved companies. Our ADs know it, because when they get a team that goes, maybe go to Team in the Clouds and get sent to the far west and far east, they have to get a charter bus. Now, I want to mention that's a segue into the last thing I want to mention about field trips. And I think all of us, probably multiple ones of you have said something to me over the last year. And we try to keep you informed when we've had a bus bump up or whatever. But whether it's a yellow bus or it's an activity bus on a field trip or whatever. And so there's a couple of things that come to mind. And so here's the questions that have been posed, or I posed to myself and will to staff, and want to share with you. Should schools be required to use a charter bus when they go to big cities versus asking staff members to drive activity buses into places they're not familiar with? Now, I'm not taking Winston-Salem and Greensboro out because they're not big cities, but I think people are more familiar with it. But I do think this has a distinct focus on Raleigh and Charlotte, and probably, and I didn't think about this till I started talking, you probably can put Wilmington in there now. Because Wilmington has roads going everywhere now. They're cutting roads from Wilmington up East North Carolina, like unbelievable. I don't even know where one highway comes out. It heads towards where I grew up, and I don't even know where it comes out at up there. But when I go to Wilmington now, I'm really clued in on what are the interstate signs saying, just to get to Battleship to get over in downtown. And so there's a question that I would like to, that's one I think we need to answer yes to. My recommendation is when you go in, I think we could put Charlotte, Wilmington, and Raleigh in there and see how it goes. And I think we'll have to update our stuff, because I think those, again, I'm not ready to say Greensboro and Winston, because a lot of people know those areas. But we're putting people on buses, and they're driving buses, and they're going in unfamiliar. They're going down to the Marvelous Kids Museum or the Science Museum downtown Raleigh. And, you know, when you get downtown Raleigh, you just like a lot of big cities, you've got roads going one way only. And so I would like to propose that. I don't,
To Raleigh, I mean, you got these ag teachers and all, they've drove to state fairgrounds for up to 10 years, I mean.
well, we could say to the inside, downtown in
I
these
mean,
big
downtown,
cities.
I hate driving downtown Raleigh, I ain't been there
I
in
mean,
years,
you
but I
can
hate
get
this
to-
way.
You can get to the state fairgrounds
Yeah.
pretty direct without getting in that. So maybe we say to the downtown area, let's kick that around and,
Well, I'll tell you my thought on
I
it.
mean, I just hate to incur a bigger
Tracy.
cost on
yeah,
any
well,
student.
there's the flip side, Mr.
I
Morris.
do too.
See, Tracy, you're talking about, probably predominantly high school and all that, but what I'm thinking, when I think about this, and I think you're right, but I think, what I'm thinking about is the elementary school. Basically, you've got K through 5, you got those little kids, and, the teachers, we're going, example, Discovery Place or whatever it's called in Charlotte. And you send, teacher assistant that may drive a bus, filling in here and there. She may drive 5 miles, 6 miles. And you
She
put
is
it in
called to
her.
drive that
Yes,
school
and
bus
then,
all
you
the
know
way
what,
down
you
Payne.
put her on that, I had one call me last
You don't
year.
want your child on
And she says, I'm gonna tell you something, I can't do this. And that's what really brought my attention. She says, I love the school system, I love my job. But she said, I went to Charlotte today, I was a nervous wreck, it's not safe for those kids. I finally get down to Discover Zone, and I couldn't find nowhere, there was nowhere to park. And she said, I had to, they told me where to go, somewhere else in Charlotte. And I could either stay with the bus all day, or I could, somebody come and pick me up and bring me back. So a parent that went and picked them up. But I'm thinking, basically, they were out there in limbo if that parent hadn't. There was that wasn't right. And on that particular day, it was the parent that bailed her out, it wasn't the teacher. We got the kids down here, you're on your, that's all that mattered. That's all that mattered to those teachers that day, that they got the kid down there. And so that's when it hit me. But I get, maybe talking about guys, ladies that does it all the time, that's different. It drives someone. I'm just thinking more like, there's maybe situations, but it's not fair for, well, let's go to Raleigh this week, we're going to the Capitol, wherever, then we're gonna go to Charlotte, and you put that same woman or whatever on the bus that has no friggin' clue where she's going. That's not right.
Well, you got to, we went down there.
There's not enough money for
We went
that.
down 1 year to Raleigh, and it was me and somebody, we pulled in the parking lot, went in the park, next thing you know, we sat in some senator's parking spot, you just don't
Well, you
know where
know,
to
You
go.
should leave it as an option, like, we're okay with it, with having charters, but if you're comfortable, cause like, then that kind of leaves it open for your FFA and your people who are, you know, but some of them may would be open to the idea of having a charter tickets, and they can
High
focus
school.
on the.
You know how
yeah,
many times Brian's been hit going to Raleigh?
Yeah,
Twice.
really.
Twice.
On the highway or in the parking
And
lots?
it's down in there somewhere, he's been hit twice. One car got totaled, just not even his fault, he wasn't even drinking.
I would just be safe.
Because I've heard a lot of people get really nerved out going to Charlotte. Like, it's a lot going on at one time.
Why don't we say it this, why don't we, look at if you're going into the downtown area
Yeah,
in Charlotte or Raleigh, or in downtown Wilmington, then you need to
Did
take.
they get a better deal on the buses?
Huh?
Did they get a better rate on those buses? I don't know. I mean, if you're going on a trip, I know back when I used to, in school, we would charter a bus.
yeah.
And,
Them too, and
And you know
if
what?
something
We-
happens that breaks down, they look after
yeah,
it.
you would
We
take
don't have to
up
go.
and pay the money and,
The other piece that's come up, and I don't think we're folding,
Get out of the parking lot.
we're just talking athletics. I mean, we're just talking field trips, not athletics.
Right.
But that's a different thing, and that's beyond the school day. So not looking at that because that could come as a cost that schools couldn't afford. And so, obviously, if they're going into a big city and they start using charter buses, then they're gonna incur more costs. The other thing that did a little research on is, what about our classified staff or our staff that are asked to drive these buses and they go on a field trip that's a long length? And so, now we've gone from
Yeah, how do you pay?
maybe we're driving a yellow bus, dropping kids off, and I get, but this is on the highway. And so, another thing is there a distance, a one-way distance, that if it's longer than this, we say on a field trip, you've gotta have a charter bus. So, again, taking athletics away, we're talking about field trips during the day. Sounds like we've got a little bit of consensus there with, into downtown Raleigh, into downtown Wilmington, into downtown Charlotte. Okay, that's something we can work with, but is there, and I don't know that, the 100 miles, that's something that, talking to Wendy, that's a pretty good length, that's 2 hours driving on an activity bus, one way. Charlotte's not 100. Raleigh's not 100, I don't think. Wilmington is, but,
100's a long ways.
it is to put somebody on that bus for a,
Yeah, where you going,
for a
100's a
field
long way.
trip, and they're the driver,
49, 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
long
they got
way.
much drinking kids.
Especially with kids losing their interest and,
I would like to, we're gonna work on those two things. I think what I'm hearing about we've got our standards, we will continue to, work through those as recommendations or requests come down for trips. Just wanted to get those out, and we will, Mr. Bowles, you mentioned, we'll make sure and ask principals to make sure their staff knows what these procedures say, if they have not. I'm not saying they have not. I don't, when you've got a lot of things going on your campus, you may not even know anything about the request until it comes to your desk as a principal. So anyways, but let us work a little bit with this piece with buses. I think one piece, we'll have to look back at that distance. I don't even know if the distance would really.
well, one
Impact.
field trip that's real popular, that I hear a lot about, is the Lazy Five. And with Lazy Five, basically, the mileage may be there, but
Lexington, Salisbury.
it's not too, you just, you're going to like Salisbury, then you take a right, it's a kind of a country, it's not too bad. I mean, that's, it's towards what, Mooresville or something?
Yeah, I think it is.
That's not like a,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
sure.
that might be
Going
one
towards
that catches the
Charlotte. Not in
100 mile.
no.
I talked to Wendy Anderson, gave some information, and just asking her being that what she deals with all the time, what's the taxing amount of distance one way, and she equated 100 miles one way to 2 hours one way. drive, which winds up being round trip 4 hours. That's a lot for somebody who's, you know, because that to me, that's a lot. That's.
I think it's a
Well,
lot.
what do you accomplish when you go that far in a day anyway? If you go
You
that
know, we're
far
already,
in one day, I mean, by the time you get there, you turn around and come back. I don't even understand
Elementary,
that.
really Raleigh, I think.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can go to pretty close, I mean.
so we'll work on that as we get ready for the,
Right.
those are the two items. And lastly, just, I just
And
want
Dr.
to.
Gainey,
Huh?
I suggest that you can go to, and it'll be close, they can go to the Petty Museum, and they can go to Whitaker Farms, and I mean, you got it right here. I mean,
Bring 'em on.
And I can speak
We'll
for
give them a
Whitaker
discount
Farms.
rate, and they won't even have to,
They
they
would
won't
rather
have,
parents not.
they won't have to get an activity bus. As long as the parents
I can
buy
vouch for
something,
it.
we'll let the kids in free.
After about 6,000 elementary kids convert on their sites 3 days a week, everybody start closing during the school day. So they only have to have
Then you get them stop by Gary's place to get a free phone case.
That's it, we'll make a phone case.
So I wanna, Mr. Bill, if I can, I'd like just to follow up on something from last meeting, if you don't mind. It's not on that agenda, but I want to just give a little feedback on something, a little follow-up, okay? Are you good with that? Last board meeting, we had some discussion, and I will just say, for whoever's out there listening, appreciate Atlanta getting involved with this helping me. We had some discussion about middle school athletics. And we met on the 29th of June, and on the 3rd of July, which was the next, we were working with the 4-day weeks. 3rd of July, we reached out to Dr. Woody, Dr. Costelli with the URA Charter in Ashburn City, and we asked would they come over with their system ADs, and they did. Ashburn City system AD was on vacation, I believe, so we said no. Because we wanted to have some conversation. And Chris Waddell did come from URA Charter, he's the AD over there for their school system. And had a great conversation, and I just wanted to follow up and just say what transpired from that was very positive. Talk about the middle school situation and talk about the value of the middle school conference. And kids playing against each other, and great conversation. And as late as yesterday, I was on the phone with the Ashburn City Superintendent. So at this point, there will be, everybody's working to have separate teams. And I know that talking to Dr. Woody, he's working at it on several things, and we've had some good conversations, Dr. Costelli as well. So I just want to publicly thank them for jumping right up and coming to the meeting. On July 5, we're meeting about this, and I thought it went well, and Lynn was very helpful in that meeting. So we will continue to drive forward. As I said last meeting, middle school athletics, I get it. There's a champion of the conference and all this, and champion of Super Tuesday or Super Saturday now, and all this of these tournaments. But middle school athletics is about playing and playing as much as you can. So the two things we did talk about were
Make it even.
if we have any conference, any openings, those play dates will be used. So a team may play somebody 3 times.
You weren't here, were you?
So, at any rate, I feel really good about where we're headed, on that. And,
Dr. Gainey,
Yes.
real quick, sorry to interrupt, but Tracy was not here, so could we, here was the big discussion, and maybe you can explain it more, that when it all come down to it, would you touch on her NERMs and CERMs,
Yeah, there was,
and how they had 2 teams making one, and
Yeah, they've always.
and
Nails
one of the
and
big
nails
things was
and
URA
asphalt.
Ridge is down there playing barely enough to have a team, and it's not fair.
but, and one of the things, Mr. Boyd, I did point out, full transparency, in the fall of 21, when Wingmore didn't have no football players, the offer was made to them to be able to combine with Trinity Middle, and they declined, so they didn't have a team that fall. So, you know, and so that offer was made by me. And it wasn't Atlanta, that was me, so I own that one. So, but I think everybody gets where we are, and there's been a lot of work and a lot of effort, because there is a value, people do value this middle school setup. And I don't think anybody, just like we're talking about charter buses, you know, driving activity buses all over the region for ball games, whether it be middle school or high school, that doesn't, that's big money. That's big money. That's why I was so excited to get everybody in this one conference here. I know it's a split 1A, 2A conference high school level. That's, your athletic budget starts right there as a principal. You better make sure you got enough gas money to drive those buses. Then you better start looking at your officials. Do you have enough money to make it through? You remember back during COVID, we paid for all the officials, because when you couldn't bring people in the gyms and the stadiums, you had no money to return to pay for officials. So, at any rate, just want to give you that little update. We'll move forward and we'll continue to work. And big thank you to both Dr. Woody and Dr. Castelli, because had a very good conversation.
It was also made clear in that meeting, though, just transparency, that we weren't very happy with what happened when you go to one school, Providence Grove, and you take friggin' half their staff. I mean, that's not, I would hope we would never do that to another school like they did to us. So, you know, that I think I used the term, you know, you go rob your neighbor's house, don't expect me to invite you over for dinner anymore. So, you know, I do think they probably got a hold of the statements Fred and I said, and we're pretty sure we won't be on their Christmas list, but that's okay. It's just the truth.
That's all I have.
All right.
Our work session. We'll come back for the board meeting at 6:30.
Did you have that calendar printed out? Hand out.
The one that, it was, I'll have to change it. I'll send it back.
Okay, then you're gonna send it to us. Okay,
You already changed it?
On there.
Okay.
okay.
It's
You
on
usually
there.
hand us a printed copy.
Who brought it?
Oh, I would,
You can email it.
I do that when I have a work
We
session.
don't, but I
Oh,
can print them
okay.
right
Yeah,
here.
just print it, that'd be great.
I keep.
I don't know what I was thinking.